for me during transitions, which for me is something needs to change here. There's something changing, and in order to do that, something's got to be let go. That's how I view that, so I could get to a space of change or shifting in my own nervous system, because essentially that's like there's crap in there that needs to move. Hello, Anya.
Hi, everybody. Hi.
Hi, guys. We were thinking about talking about transitions today.
Not,
Transitions.
let's be clear, we're just talking about transitions in life in general.
We're about to beat it off, guys. We've appreciated you a lot. On to our next step.
Yep, no. Yeah, we're not going anywhere, guys. No, I'm joking. There's a lot of different ways transitions can be used, though. And even in the new world, transitioning is a word that's used a lot, like now, And I guess I didn't even think about that when we first brought it up because we were talking about shifting and moving. But yeah, that's what we were talking about today. We're wanting to talk about everything being, like what I think of. You remember in Harry Potter when they're going up the staircase and the staircase keep moving, and it's
Yep.
like you have to try and keep up with the where the staircase is and the fact that it keeps moving, so you can't just step onto it and not know where you're going to be. And I feel like that's what's going on right now in the energies. Like everything is moving so fast, everything is changing and shedding and releasing, and in that same moment, we're also being asked to step up and step forward and speak out and, create boundaries, cut ties, leave old things, move out of places, leave old jobs, all these facets that we're being asked to shed at the moment. And that's all encompassed in transitioning, moving, changing, growth, And I get emotionally attached to things sometimes. I can be a little bit of a I hate the word hoarder, but for lack of better human words, we'll go with it because I get like emotional attachment to objects or memories or like clothes, and I guess it makes me keep shit I don't need, And I was
Yep.
going through everything and really trying to be brutal and trying to get rid of things that I'm like, I'm not going to use this, I don't need it, I'm just keeping it for sentimental value. And what I'm going to do, just look at it, and it's creating clutter and overwhelming energy. So I really need to get rid, but I find it difficult. I really find it difficult to let go of things. And I was questioning into that. I was like, why do you find letting go of physical things such a difficult thing to do? And I think it's because there's part of me that's not processed emotions from that time. And so if I've not yet processed them emotions, then I guess I'm holding on to that memory of that time so that I can keep that energy alive in me, whether that's good or bad. It can depend. And I guess it's the not processing that came up to me as I was sat with these things. Some of them were like my nana's clothes that she'd given me. Some of them were just like my shit. Some of them were kids' clothes. And when I sit with my baby's clothes and they're too small, I'm like, I just don't want to give them away because it's a chapter in my little journey of motherhood and their journey. And it feels like such an emotional thing to have to part with all them memories wrapped up in a big bag, and it's really sad and it gets me really sad, and I have a little cry and I'm like, oh, the tiny little cardies and the little outfits, and I
Yeah.
really have to like I've realized that I have to sit with them emotions if I'm actually going to let them go. I actually have to sit with that sorrow of the fact they're not that small, and that time did go too fast, and maybe there were times I wasn't present enough and I was dealing with so much that I didn't get to enjoy it as much as I thought I would in certain chapters and times. And part of me is holding on to them clothes because I'm clinging on to that time and them wishes and them wants that maybe didn't get fulfilled. And it
Right.
is sad, and that's where the sorrow comes from when you're letting it go, because it's like that, it is heavy, and it's important that we sit with that, whether it is loved ones' clothes or baby clothes or your own stuff. It's important to resonate. Is this still benefiting me? Is this bringing me something that I can use for a positive intention? And if not, it is time to let it go.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna ask you this. What is your nervous system doing inside that process?
It's struggling. No, I'm joking. I think my nervous system, as we've established, it is a tricky one. My hair's all over as well. I think that's part of it. My whole body feels like at the moment it's again, like shifting, changing, moving, and my nervous system, I think, is catching up, is the best words I can use. I think for a long time, my body throughout childhood were in fight or flight a lot of the time. And that's not to say I had a bad childhood. I just had a lot of people dealing with a lot of emotions around me, which meant my nervous system didn't always feel fully
Sure.
safe and calm to just be itself because there was so much going on. Um, and even then, I had the hospitalization throughout all of my early teens and adulthood, and I had stomach problems. I were in hospital, as we
Yeah. Yeah.
spoke about, for 10 years on end, 26 tablets a day, all the shebang. Then I went into the spiritual world, and I guess part of me did spiritually bypass a little bit with, all the lingos and all the things and blah,
Sure.
blah, blah.
Absolutely.
And I guess I really feel like I'm catching up still now from all of that. Like just yesterday, I was processing my inability to communicate directly. This is what I need because I never really had that facility available to me
Right.
at any point in my life. And so asking for it directly feels really foreign and really uncomfortable and unfamiliar and wrong in my body, in my nervous system. And so it's like a huge thing for me to do that, but then it creates more problems by me not being direct and clear on what I'm actually needing in that moment. So I'm really learning even still that such a small, basic, simple thing. But because my nervous system wasn't calm and safe to be able to do them things, I'm still just grasping that basic thing now in kind of in a calm way. But my nervous system throughout them moments is struggling. It is like panicking. Do I need it? What am I going to do? What if, there's a lot of the questioning, a lot of the fear, a lot of the, well, what if that comes up all the time. And then I've learned to just sit with them. Well, what if? Well, what if?
Yep. Yep.
What is the fucking what if? I'm like, all right, what is this what if? And I sit with it and I'm like, oh, well, the what if's not actually that bad.
Sure.
That we can buy more, we can do new things, you can get new things, unless it's something, then really, really, really important things that I don't think that can be replaced, and I'm really not bothered, and that's what I'm learning to just let go of.
Yeah. Yeah. It takes a moment to get there. I know. I mean, my past versions of self really liked that chaos there, so it liked holding on to those memories and things and people that obviously weren't that great for it. Because it was
Hmm.
like it thrived in chaos, it thrived in pressure, it thrived in deadlines, right?
Yeah.
Uh, it took a good period of time for me during transitions, which for me is something needs to change here. There's something changing, and in order to do that, something's got to be let go. That's how I view that, so I could get to a space of change or shifting in my own nervous system. Because essentially, that's like there's crap in there that needs to move.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
beneficial. Uh, and I would have to say, like, I kept stuff and I moved all over the place and all these little spaces and places that I'd have stuff. And then I go back to it. And then I'm like, I gotta get rid of all these memories that I thought were safe in these places. I had to face them.
Yeah. Yeah. And facing them, what a great word it is, facing them. Like, that's not saying you're not allowed to keep some stuff. I've kept
Sure.
the things that I think will be nice to show my kids, and like things that will be, important to me, that are from people, like little gifts and little things. And I'm like a trinket hoarder. So I have loads of like little bits, loads of little ornaments, loads of crystals. And like crystals, I'd say, are my biggest problem. I have far too many crystals that one human should own. And I don't want to get rid of them because I just love them so much. But they end up collecting dust on shelves and not being used for the reason that they actually need to be used for. So I'm definitely going to have to look through them and keep what's aligned and really place them in
Right.
specific positions. I think it's not so much about me having to let go of them all with my crystals, because I have collected them from all over the world and different times in life, and I
Right.
do really love them, but they're just not being used properly. And that's again something that's really important. I've got a lot of useful stuff, but it's not inaccessible useful ability, like availability, so it's all just stored away, and then it becomes clutter and everything. If it's not functional, it's not flowing, and that's the problem. Like, I'm really trying in my new place to create every single room having a flow and a place and an organizational structure, and that's like, this is new for me. I'm not like that. I'm usually a bit overwhelmed, chaos, like you say, but I don't want to live in that energy. I don't want to live in that overwhelm. I want to live in peace and flow and just complete calm, and that's what my nervous system is craving. And to do that, I do need to create some form of structure
Yep.
and organization in the whole thing so that everything is flowing. And that can be in your own work life, in your home, in your house,
Right.
whatever it is. Like sometimes we just need to take charge and go, hang on a minute, I have the choice whether I want to live like this. We can blame everything else. I can blame the small house and, whatever else. But in the end of the day, I can bring all that same stuff to the new house and create the same exact space. So it's important to change the patterns and the choices that you're choosing to create that are driving that emotion.
Right, right. So choice. Face the emotion or any type of trigger or facet or pattern that keeps moving along. I know going through all my stuff, I'm like each one carried a memory, and it was so overwhelming to my nervous system to have to like go through that. And then I was like, or it could be that you just don't need those memories anymore. They're weighing you down. I have to talk to my body, my nervous system. Is this weighing you down or is this feeling good? And if my body was like, absolutely not, then we're taking it out. That's
Yep.
not it's not a good space for me to be in. And then I went the other direction and I got like rid of everything. And I was like, okay, you know what? Total clean slate, which also isn't, I would have to say, the best for my nervous system because then it was like, I don't really have anything. And
Yeah.
that was my like return to, oh, but I do deserve to have the things that I like in my life, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So it was a whole situation.
It's finding a healthy balance because like everyone around me is kind of giving me shit like, oh, why are you taking all this you stuff like for and I'm like, but I actually do need some stuff. Like I can't just get rid of everything.
Yep.
Like, oh,
Yep.
I am gonna create an organized flow and space, but to do that I need to be able to have the things I need. So like I've sorted through a lot that I don't need already at the old place, but then there is bound to be some stuff that's come to the new place that also needs to be work
Yep.
through, and I need to put all the summer clothes away in the suitcase. There's like organizing things, and because there is more space, like a loft and a garage, you can actually put things away. So they're not in your peripheral vision in the constant space. But yeah, that's just one example. It's so important to do that within, and I feel like I'm doing the opposite of what most people do. Most people already have like the house sorted and their timings and the routines, like that's what basic human people do. But I kind of just bypassed that and was like, right, I went straight from being 18 years old, like, I started reading tarot cards at about 18, 19, whilst
Yep.
doing a university degree, and I was still living in uni digs. I wasn't living in a home or like living and I'm very free spirit. I'm still like that now. I travel a lot. I go with the wind, end up where I end up. And I didn't really get much grounding into like human life. I know that sounds really strange, but
Yep.
I
No, I
didn't.
get
And I spent like 10 years just living with the fairies, like literally,
it.
just floating through, doing what I'm doing, living life with the fairies in the forest, dancing away with my animals, do 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 do, like little, little Snow White in the forest. Like that was literally me for about 10 years. And then pregnancy really did ground me, as I've spoke about before, into the
Yeah,
human. And I guess I've then done it the other way around because I spent them 10 years going within, working on so many layers, which
sure.
is obviously what's enabled me to do the work I do now and, create the retreats we do and stuff. Because I did spend 10 years plus figuring out why my stomach was a problem, why I had depression, anxiety, why I was on all this medication at 19 years old. Like that was normal. Like that was what I was meant to be doing for the rest of my life. I had to sit with all these things and go within to get these answers and figure out all this trauma and releasing and
Yeah,
yada yada, all the years of stuff to then now be 28 and figuring out how to be a human. And I guess it's like I feel like I've gone kind of the other way, but I think that's because I'm gaining skills I need to learn, and I've done a lot of skill. I'm not saying I haven't got skills left to learn in the astral realm. I'm sure there's plenty, but
right,
at this
right.
current time I need to figure out how to be a human because I'm not very also that good at it sometimes. I get really
Yep,
overwhelmed, really dysregulated, really I'm sensitive to energies and frequencies and vibes, and I struggle a lot with just like the smallest change can throw me off with everything, and the smallest vibration can make me feel so weird. And so I guess I'm really figuring out how to be a human with more ease, and how
right.
to not find it such a difficult experience because sometimes I do. I find it difficult to be a human, and I love being a human. I think it's amazing, and there is probably nothing else on Earth, on like any other realm, planet, frequency like it, because it's such a rare experience. But man, is it dense sometimes, like whoa, I'm not used to that level of 3Dness in life, and I guess it's taken me 28 years to realize, okay, this is how we do this human thing. Like, I feel like I'm figuring it out a little bit.
I'm still figuring it out, That's kind of a new story for me every day. It took me a good period of time too because I was so sensitive
Hmm.
that it was hard for me to be out in public in reality. I was super immersed with energies in a very deep shamanic way, and so I chose to be out hidden in the mountains versus being out most of the time and figuring out that piece of it. So that was my kind of descent back into humanity and really grounding all of that I knew from all of that out there that I perceived and how I perceived ever since I was little. And I still get so sensitive that I have to like not be outside sometimes. I have to just, watch my nervous system because I can get overwhelmed pretty quickly depending on who I'm around, what I'm around, what's coming in. Um, and that can be perceived in any which way when I'm out, especially when it gets really loud. And I'm sitting here kind of like ticking because there's so much of that energy. And I'm like, okay, let me put my headphones on for right now so that I can at least regulate my body. And that's, I think, really what we're coming into is like, how do you regulate your physical body? How does that
I,
actually work?
yeah,
How do you walk with it? And that was me dropping any perception of what anybody else had out there because to someone else it could look like, obviously I'm neurospicy, that is a thing. It could look like, I have autism out there when I get really dysregulated because there's too much coming at me all at once. And it's dropping those perceptions and realizing, okay, my body is experiencing a whole lot right now. I mean, in many different realities. Let's just get real. Okay.
right.
How do I put this into the human to ground it? What does my human self need in this moment? I think that's what you're heading to in earlier. Sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I'm like a blank for a hot second until that answer comes to me, or I need to get in the car, or whatever the case is. And understanding that the bodies very much so have needs, so does the nervous system. And we haven't really been taught on how to speak up for that so much or be in a space where that was allowed or it wasn't like talked over or shut down or seen as something that was too much, too wide, whatever the
Mhm.
case is with that. So I think I mean, from my perspective, this is my perspective, everybody, we're learning how to take these baby steps and what our body actually needs as we're perceiving everything and we're having the soul experience, and we're still having all of that experience, which has always been there. That hasn't changed, right? But what has changed is how we interact with our body, I feel like.
100%, 100%. And yeah, I very much in their moments of overwhelm, I'm like fight or flight out of that. I have to go outside. And I think
Yep,
that is why I smoked a lot of the time because it was a great excuse to be like, right, I'm just outside, like let me get outside. Because
yeah,
it like gives you a reason, I guess, to be stood outside. But in them times, being away from the energy, being away from the environment, and being able to just sit in that moment, okay, what's going on with me? Why did that create such a reaction? What feelings are coming up? Like, what memories are being triggered right now? And actually being able to sit with it, firstly, and communicate with myself.
for
This
sure.
is why that happened. That is so great. So I'm obviously not recommending smoking, but the time that I gave myself in that time whilst I was outside smoking gave me that reflection time, because when I get triggered, I am very fight or flight. I will leave and like
Yeah,
review it over in my head and regulate it, or I will get very defensive and very, why are you coming at me? I feel like I'm being attacked right now, so I need to protect myself. So I
yep,
am really like you say, one of the two ways. And for me, that time to just go outside and reflect and communicate and then be able to express it in a healthy, clear, calm way was really important because it gave like a pause in between the trigger and the reaction and the communication after the fact. It allowed me to actually express my true emotions without it coming from a triggered way.
I
Mm.
appreciate that expression. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had different platforms that I've used for that, and I feel like over time it's giving my body the voice that she needs to name those
Mm.
things, and not in a spiritual way, like I'm at this, blah, 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 which is the thing. I see it. Don't get it. Don't get me wrong. But for my body, who's like, look, I've always had synesthesia. everything that comes in is on a mega screen of a million different pictures for me, and I can taste the colors, I can hear the sounds, like everything is coming in all at once, and if my body can just name what's happening without like being out there, then I have a grounded perspective of, okay, this is how I'm experiencing this. Obviously, I'm seeing like beings and sound and things like that, but also I've experienced this ever since I was little. I need to name it, and how to then can I walk with it, and knowing that I'm still perceiving those things, I'm still perceiving all those frequencies, all those places, but giving my body that voice, and that's been a challenging walk for a long time because I was heck is super dysfunctional for a good period of time in this body, where she was
Yeah.
just out. That's the only thing that she saw. She couldn't really perceive a physical reality.
No, no. And I get that. And I think that's where my, stomach thing came in. It was like there was too much going on in the body. And so it was a way to rest. Like literally I would just be laid up in a hospital bed for a week, 2 weeks at a time. So it was a great, like the easiest and fastest way for my body to rest at that time. Like there was no other way I would allow myself to rest unless I was ill. And so that was how my body knew, all right,
God,
if she's not going to do it, then she's got to go that way because that's the only way she'll slow down and rest for a little bit. But then, like 2 days later, I'd be out doing the same. So I never learned for years and years and years on end. It's like that resistance to just looking after your own self. And I think
right?
that's really important right now because there's so much pressure, whether it's from the spiritual world to be like a constant, ever evolving healing project, which we are, obviously, but like we don't always need to be putting every fiber of being and energy into that, and we don't always need to be like the cleanest living, detoxed, herbalist, vegan, whatever it is that you see in the spiritual community nowadays because they don't really look, and it's like that
Yep.
whole ideology shit, like, just live what's right for you.
Yeah,
Find your inner voice and that will change. I used to be vegetarian. Now I eat like three, four steaks a week. So, you got to find what works for you. And listen, I was vegetarian for 7 years. I didn't just do it for a little while, I did it for a long time. But
yep,
my body spoke to me and I didn't listen for a long time, a long,
yeah,
long time out of
absolutely.
ego and out of just pride and shame and just shit. And so, like, I've been there, I've done it, and just know that things can change. Your
Sure.
perspectives, your truths, who you are, what you represent, the connections you have, like, all of that can shift and change, but it can't if you don't allow it to,
Yeah,
because
for sure.
other people have perception, what's the word, perceptions, yeah, that's probably the right word, perspectives, perceptions, whatever. I think I was trying to mush the two together, in of us, like versions of us they've created in their mind, and we can either choose to live up to that or choose to create something new. But we also have a version of us we've created in our mind, and we kind of limit our experience based upon that. Sometimes it can be the
Yeah,
meat, like I was saying, the vegetarian meat thing. Oh, well, I can't enjoy that food because I'm a
sure.
vegetarian and I've made this like boundary. And again, I understand how triggering that might be for some people. It would have been for me when I was in that place. But I have to admit, there were so many times my body was communicating with me for
Right.
different nourishment, and I wasn't listening because of what I was believing in my consciousness rather than in my soul and what my
Yep.
body were actually telling me. And that's just one example, so many different things. Like, you just have to be truly checking in with them things. Is this still what's vibrating with me? And don't be so specific with the labels. Like, there's such a label thing,
Right.
in this Etarian, like everything's got a name to it and every spiritual label and things. Like, I started off a card reader. Definitely would not define myself as a card reader now as just that.
Sure. Sure.
But there you go, we all start somewhere and you can't just limit to
Definitely.
that one, oh, I'm a card reader, because then I would have never gone into past life, channeling, healing, the different layers of
Sure.
subconscious
Absolutely.
reprogramming if
Absolutely.
I'd have stayed as a reader or a medium. So you have to let go of, this is who I am, this is what I do. Okay, well, this is
Exactly.
what you did and what you do today and
Sure.
what you did yesterday, but is this what you're going to do tomorrow? Because tomorrow you might, I mean, I flip through about 10 different versions of me,
Totally.
cooking, and then I'm a gardener, and then I'm looking like I'm going to the Brit Awards and going out for dinner, and then I'm painting in the garden looking all feral, and then I'm literally on the couch sprawled out, not even able to make any food. And yeah, I go from being Betty
Right.
Crocker with the food prep, like organic food, to then eating fast food on the couch because I physically can't have the energy to do anything, and I am full version of everything, and I'm not ashamed to admit that. I'm not ashamed to
Yeah,
admit that
yeah,
my
yeah, for sure.
frequency does fluctuate, and it's not the same carbon copy every day, all day. And I used to be way more strict because of labels, because of this is who
Totally.
I am, and I have to stay this version. And it's boring. It's really boring. Let me just tell you, it's really boring. It's not fun. It's not fun at all. It just
Yeah.
don't feel. It's not real. It's not. It's not authentic either. You think you're being your
No,
real self,
no.
but you're not. You're being a version of you you've created and limited yourself to.
And what I have to say with that is, with everybody and their own perspectives with this, what have you labeled yourself as?
Hmm.
Take look at that. My first entrance into this was shaman. Very,
Yeah.
very. I didn't like to own that, but that's the route that I took until I had to give that up because that really wasn't, that was an identity that I had for a good period of time. It's not Z underneath all
Yeah.
that. It's a little
Yeah.
aspect, nice little flair.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
all these other
There.
identities, the spiritual identities, spiritual bypassing. Honestly, for that, I didn't have the verbal acuity or language for what I was experiencing.
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
instead of like trying to like go deeper to feel into it and find a language that worked for me, I used those labels.
Yeah.
And it shifted from ego then to hierarchy, and I'm like, this is not what I'm trying to actually express. So I gotta drop that because that's obviously not working for me. Like at the end of the day, like I'm one spicy ass chick.
Yep.
There's all
Exactly.
kinds of languages for everything, who is art every single day, who is different per second moment. You never know what you're gonna get. I'm one back Pandora's box.
Literally. Literally. That's why I love you. I love you. No, it's true though, because you see it a lot, and I am even going to go there. There's so many labels in the neurodivergent world. Now, listen, I've known people that have been in this world, and I am most definitely in this world myself, but I think what I've experienced, the people that I knew, some of them need to understand what's going on with them. Now, that's where a label can bring
Help
deeper understanding
for
and
sure.
excitement
Absolutely.
about self. Because if you feel like there's something wrong with you because you're not normal in this strange world that we live in, then
Yep.
sometimes having an explanation as to what, like, I'm dyslexic, so never was diagnosed in school. And then I went to university and they did a test and I'm actually severely dyslexic. And so I ended up getting
Yep.
like a tutor and all this other shit. But my grades went from being like below average to really top high marks. And I thought, like, how many years could I have actually got better grades if I'd have had the support for what my brain actually needs? And I was like, oh shit,
Absolutely.
like that was interesting. And so I got to experience the good thing about having a label in sense because I got way more support for the actual stuff going on in my brain. Now that doesn't mean I'm not intelligent. I just don't learn in the same way that other people do, and I don't express
Absolutely.
that knowledge in that way. As many people know about dyslexia. However, I
I
don't really.
grab yes.
Yeah, yeah. I remember before we're in the dyslexic room, but that's the thing. Like I'm going. That's what I'm talking about. Like I never, because I didn't have that growing up. I didn't know, so I did a little bit think like, why do I find this harder than everyone else? But I figured it out in my own way. So I'd make posters or I'd make songs, and didn't like stop me. And I think sometimes if you tell a child from a young age that like if you make it sound like that's a limiting thing, if you make it sound like they are limited by that, then they are going to believe that they are limited by it. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so it can be the same thing. It sometimes can go either way. Sometimes having a diagnosis can be hugely beneficial for children, for
Oh,
teenagers, for mothers, for adults, for everyone. Like I'm mad ADHD, I'm undiagnosed, but God, I'm a walking ADHD poster. Like there is no diagnosis needed, girl. Like come on, we don't need it. But again, I'm glad I didn't have. I don't know. I'm glad for me it was the better way. I don't think I would have liked to feel too different because I managed
right.
self managed whatever the word is. And I look around now and I see sometimes where people maybe didn't try different opportunities or wasn't allowed, because of this diagnosis or label because oh well they won't be able to handle it or it'll be too much or it'll trigger this or it'll create
Right.
this. And I'm not saying that's wrong. Who am I? I'm not a parent of a child with neurodivergent issues, so I can't say I know. But from my experience, and then speaking to the adult version of them children after they've grown up, I've seen how sometimes they did feel a little bit like held back, and also like held back in their own mind because they felt like
Right.
they're not allowed or they're not capable because of these labels and names and diagnoses. And again, good and bad things about them. Let's just have a conversation about it because it is a thing. Like, and let's not necessarily go into why it's a thing because we all know in America it's all coming out like wildfire, which I'm really good about. I'm really glad about that. It's all coming out everywhere on the correlation between the things that we get as children and why there's
Right.
so many people that unfortunately, because it can be beautiful, but not when it's being forced upon you,
Right.
can have experienced this. And again, why a lot of us experience these things in our generation. And so, so much going on that did not happen in the generation before and before them and before that. So this is new. This is new stuff that we are figuring out as a collective generation, and we're going to be able to figuring this out as we
Or,
raise the next generation and the one in between, So yeah, I guess throwing it back to you, Z, like what do you think about the neurodivergent labels? I definitely said divergent. I don't know if that's the word, but you get what I'm saying. Like all the different diagnoses and
totally.
labels. How do you think about the self-fulfilling prophecies and stuff like that?
It's a really interesting topic because if you wanted to label me on the spectrum, girl, I'm up on that spectrum so high.
We get like top marks, like
I'm like top notch. I got all the tisms and all the things in there. If you were to label me on how I perceive the universe. At the end of the day, I think it can be, like you said, very extraordinarily useful to maybe
Mhm.
go down some of those routes because it can give you a platform to stand on. Just like I
Yeah.
could say, like, shamanism gave me my platform to stand on, whether it was in my lineage or not, which it was. I had deep shamanism in my lineage, and it came in when I was really young. It gave me a point where I could ground to. So did the
Mhm.
spirituality. Okay. If I go off into dyslexia, now that's like a big portion of me. And I was really grateful because when I started hitting the shamanic jive, I had these medicine chiefs that were like, "No, you don't want to change that. That's a gift. That is
Yeah,
one
I think
heck of a
so.
gift,
Yeah.
actually." And I was like, "Okay, well, what about my ADHD or TISM?" And they would say, "Even more so. You don't want to change any of that stuff. That's what's giving you what you're doing right here."
Multidimensionalness, darling.
Which and they're like, we can't even go that far. So what we tell you is honor it, honor what you need in the space, and that really, really helped me out. It helped
Yeah,
me out a lot.
truly.
So I would say like if that's a route, and now, I mean, at least in America, there's lots of different platforms for it, and people are actually
Mhm.
like really like diving into it, which is fun, you
Yeah.
know. So that's cool. If it gives you a sense of groundedness in yourself, go for it, you know.
I totally agree. You just made me think of something else. So let's question that. So say, like you say, I agree. I don't think I'd be able to run the retreats and plan all these things and spin the plates that we do without having this, like I call it multiple tabs open at the same time. Like it's just,
Yep. Yep.
so much going on. And I really can function with such ease in that state. It's very easy for me to do. And other people find it very overwhelming and I get why. But again, for us it's very easy to flow into that. But then let's say some of this was created and now obviously I know everything's a soul choice, so we have a lot of things that we chose to experience as a soul
Yep.
level.
Yep.
So how much would you say in your perspective? I guess in mine it does feel like a lot of choice, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause that kind of answered my own question, but that's what I was thinking. Like
Well done, everybody.
I was like, if it is an interference from the things we get as children, which is now being proven because of the levels of metals and aluminium and
Absolutely.
chemicals and
Right.
different reactions to the human brain. And then again, we have people that experience like non-verbal, non-physical, to that extreme and that level. How much of it is choice and how much of it is interference to try and suppress our souls from getting to that level of, because now we're getting to
Sure.
unity between the mind, body, the soul, the higher
Oh,
self, everything becoming like one whole being. And that's what there was always fighting against with the things that they was putting in, with the, constant different, like they've got a bag of pie tricks, as I call it, whether it's the
totally.
schooling system, the big pharma, anything to do with the control and keeping us suppressed into 3D. Like how much of them doing that to create the long-term effects on the human was an interference, and how much of it do you reckon was our own choice? What are you getting on that?
That's a pretty big bag. I don't have all
Mm.
the answers to that because there's so many different uh, ways to look at that. I want to look at
Mhm.
myself as like my body consciousness is has her own consciousness compared to my soul, right? They're integrated. They talk to each other. That's how I
Yeah.
kind of take a look at that. When I've dove deep into things, when my soul's like up there, like I can see her working and creating choices, and I can see my body going, "Are you kidding me? I'm not going to do that one." So I think I think it's multi-leveled at how you can take a look at this. If I were to tell my body, look, from a higher perspective and a soul perspective, you chose this, my body's going to be like, I'm the one who's here on earth. You're telling me that I
Yeah.
chose, to have this particular. She's like, no, I'm not, I'm not buying that so much. I realize that I have a genetic lineage. I realize that I've been programmed from society. I realize that I have these programs with crappy food in the air and things like that probably would have shifted and suppressed things. I feel like there's a variable in there where some of this suppression definitely closed off some choices that I think that I would have made had I not had those. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Because it's like, I remember queuing up at 15 years old to get the HPV vaccine.
Oh yeah, yep,
I said that word, but there we go. And I remember being stood outside the classroom, and everything in my soul was like, this is wrong. This is really wrong. And
yep.
I knew it was wrong. And I was sat there and I watched a girl pass out in front of me, and I was like, yo, this is really wrong. And I remember being really afraid. And luckily I was fine, but like, I knew in my soul it was wrong, but we still just did it because you were told to, and you were in school and you were 15
Right.
and you were just told to do it. And so I guess a part of me wonders, in that moment, was that choice out of fear? Was that suppression? Because my soul was like, nah, but my body was like, but I have to, because it was programmed, you know?
Totally,
And so
totally.
was that influence, was that interference more so than a soul choice, more so than something the soul and the body actually wanted to do? It was more so a program running from fear and suppression. So in them cases, is that more so than the influence rather than the higher self choice, you know?
I mean, that's a good question. I ask everybody to take a look at that.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
have
because I'm looking in my own, I'm
Wondering
like,
curiosity.
yeah, because I'm like sitting with you and I'm like scanning through all the times in my life, and like I remember when, I don't remember being a baby, but I feel like in my body it consented to having them because that was part of what was coming in the future. Like that was fine. It feels like the baby was fine. But then as an adult, well, as a teenager, that was not fine. And I remember that so clearly in my brain.
Yep,
That was not fine, and I knew that was not right. And then, but I think maybe obviously a detox, it did whatever. But it was not long after that I ended up getting severe depression, and like really, really bad depression, and really bad like panic attacks, and like really bad mental health after that for a good few years. And I'm not saying it was directly connected, but we don't actually know because we're not sure what's going into the bodies of these young developing children and teenagers. I don't know how the heck we ended up on this, but here we are, you know. I
it's a good
guess
one.
it is,
It's a good
it
one.
is change, and the things have to change though. And to even that, even down to that, even down to the fact, I shared something today. A lot of people believe that it is like dead versions of viruses and a bit of saline. But if
Sure.
you actually do check ingredients, like just go and check just on their own government websites and go have a look. A lot of this will show you the levels of how much heavy metal mainly children get before the age of 5. Like it is shocking, and I guess the part of change to create the new earth is to choose to actually choose to look through that fear, choose to look and question, actually, is this right? Just because we've all had it and we're all fine. Are we all fine though?
Yep,
Are we all fine though? And are they giving the same things as what we got though? No.
yep,
They've changed
yep,
so
yep,
much from
yep.
30 years ago,
Totally,
and I
totally.
really don't believe we're all fine. I hear that all the time. Oh, I had it and fine. And I'm like, yeah, I stood there talking about your chronic stomach issues and skin imbalances and neurodivergent issues 20 minutes before, but yeah, we're all fine. Yeah,
All
love being
great.
fine. Yeah, wonderful.
Totally
You know.
fantastic. I found that if I I have an understanding that my soul has made these choices, and my body and my soul are working together through these choices. But if I also go like, "Hey, body, you were ritualistically abused for 13 years, and that was by your choice," I'm actually denying some emotions that my body has there, which I'm
Right?
not going to do.
Right?
So I'm gonna let her like kind of work through that, because she'd be like, I did not like randomly just and I'm like, yeah, no, I get that, right? So I have to do this in layers, and what is going to feel good to my body, what feels compassionate, where I'm not like, yeah, bitch, you just chose to do that.
Exactly. I was thinking about that last week when we was talking about the manifesting and creating change and knowing that we chose a lot of the things. I was actually thinking about that experience specifically because you can't say to people that have been through that experience, and I never would, that that was a choice, because in what earth is that a normal thing with anyone with empathy to say to someone else? Like, there's so many facets to what we experience and why we experience things. And you are such an empowerer and a light worker and a strong being to be able to anchor in that light. And who's to say the reasons and the layers and the lifetimes that built up to that? But there is no way you can diminish someone's experience
No,
and pain
no,
by saying that. And it's the same thing with people passing over. And as
sure,
much as
exactly.
death is not real in that sense, and we do have continuous life, and it's not the end, and it's not that sad, it's still sad, and we're still allowed to grieve,
Yeah,
and
we're
people
still
are still
happy.
allowed to feel
Yeah,
shit about the fact that that version of that human at that time is no longer on this earth and never will be again.
yeah,
And that's sad. So even if you're going to see them again, even if it continues, that's still sad, and it's still ending and mourning that chapter together as two human beings on this planet, on this realm at the same time. And you're allowed to grieve that. You're allowed to feel that emotion as a finite, sad, emotional thing. And I don't know why people in the spiritual community try and bypass the depth of death sometimes. Like, it is beautiful, it is absolutely beautiful, because it's the next chapter for that soul, but also for the humans that are not quite there, that chapter, that are left in their own realm. It's really fucking sad, and
yeah,
especially when they're not ready, especially
yeah,
when there weren't times, and chapters of life when it's unexpected. Like, you can't expect somebody that's experienced that on the other end as a human to think
right.
that that was what was all normal and meant to be, and they all chose that. And that's really insensitive to think that someone that's experienced that, when you haven't experienced that, to say them words. And again, it's knowing that through the changes, through the growth, I see things online and I think, I don't know how people do get up and keep going through that, and they like pull strength from somewhere that is unknown. That strength is unfathomable. And I know that people watching this will have had to experience stuff like that. And I deeply have like such respect for people that go through them things and them experiences. And wherever you're at in your journey right now, a lot of us are shifting and moving and changing and growing and going through the next transitional stage in life. And it is sad for a little bit because we're letting go of everything that's gone. I feel like I'm really shifting from younger adult into like a real adult now. And it's
Yeah,
different in my brain. It's like letting go of that little free little, she's still there, and I know she'll always be there, but she just feels a lot smaller now than she used to feel, and there's so much other things taking up the space in my own life that need to be there right now for this chapter. And it's like, I know that I'm going through a shift in chapters, in where I'm at in life and who I am. And it's not fighting them and not resisting them. It's sitting with them and dancing with them and crying with that experience, and loving it and laughing with it, and then letting it go for where it needs to go, and allowing space to create for the new, mainly internally, but yeah, externally as well. Let's do the internal work so then it ricochets
yeah,
out in the outside world and creates the new.
yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been a beautiful chat.
It was. It was good to just
Transition,
loop it
everybody.
straight around. Yeah. Yeah, it was fucking wild, like, but it was good. We just went boop, 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 boop. But do you know what? I love, again, I've said it many times, but I do love how raw, real, vulnerable, authentic, just how honest we show up, and how you guys that are watching it allow us to be that version of self. And we're going to be wanting to go through some transitions ourselves. I myself am wanting to expand the website. I'm wanting to make things more accessible and reachable, expand the sessions. The time has come, it feels, to open up more time to offer one-to-ones and group sessions and workshops and stuff like that. And yeah, I'm really wanting to expand into my singing as well and offering up
Yeah.
like gigs in singing gigs and wedding gigs and making that available for people in England. I mean, I could go overseas, but I'm not sure how that'd work. But don't know how
Throw
that'd
it out
work. But
there.
we could make it work, I suppose. I'll go overseas for other things, so it's not a bad thing. But yeah, and just on that note, overseas, we are naturally is flowing that the new retreat that we are wanting to do next year is building as well. And again, things that are expanding, things that are shifting and changing. And
Right.
every retreat that I create, that we create, is designed specifically that we literally don't plan it until the energies tell us to plan it. Like that's how
Yep.
energetically channeled it is. There is not much business logistical like focus. It's very energetically focused, on what's energetically aligned and what feels the best for
Right.
the group that's going to receive it. And, I find it difficult to talk about stuff without sounding in the ego because it's one of them human things that we navigate. But we do get a lot of great feedback and a lot of great feedback that says when they go through these experiences, it genuinely can change your life. And I think it's been open to allowing your life to change. And I think it's very relevant with what we've been talking about today. It doesn't need to be through our retreat, it just worked very well through what I was saying
Yep.
because we are a group of people that create an experience that's specifically tailored for you to go from one version of you to another version of you. And that other version of you is one that, yes, is surrendered a lot more and has stepped into the unknown and sat with the shadows and sat with the sorrow, but then emerges, as I always like to say, like a phoenix from the ashes, like my beautiful boy, rising
Uh,
up through the fire into the new. And that's the version that is residing within you that's waiting to be awakened and waiting to be reborn. And we are going to be helping create a safe space for you to do that. We're not magicians, we're not these,
oh
you
no.
know,
We're gonna
like
be doing it with you. That's what we're
yeah,
gonna
we're just going to
do.
create a space. We're going to open up some facility, bring our wisdom, bring our skills, have other facilitators and their wisdom and skills, and just create a really magical, serene, beautiful space. We are going to be in Spain, so it is going to be beautiful hot weather. It's going to be in summer. We're going to be in a nice experience like we had in 2023, which is all about that connection, community vibes, places to relax, places to connect, places to eat together, all in that kind of centered community vibe. But it really is, it's not a holiday. It is an experience for you to be reborn in a holiday environment. But that's, but it's not just your standard week away on holiday. It really will be a transformative stepping into the unknown and surrendering to then receive serenity within. So that is what we will be focusing on. And I'm really excited, Z, that we're collabing together on this because,
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
we did the New Earth together and that was just magical. But I'm really excited to be in new land.
Yep.
In 'cause
Okay.
the New Earth gathering was in my like local hometown in all the Yorkshire moors, and it was magical and divine. I actually truly loved it. Some people didn't like the energy. Like there was great feedback from some. Some found it a little bit different. I mean, it's very ancient old here, so of course you're going to get some mixed up stuff going on. But I love the Yorkshire energy. But I'm truly excited to experience a new place with you, and
Yep.
I
Me
think
too.
it's going to be a great place to create that serenity. Is that environment we're going to be in together? So I'm just so looking forward to it and seeing how it unfolds.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm looking
And
forward to it.
everybody really step into themselves. So
Yeah.
you're great. All right, Anya.
Hmm.
Well, I love you lots. I love everybody out
Okay.
there. If you have any questions or want us to do a deep dive on something else, please let us know.
Yeah, please give us some topics. That'd be great because I like to talk about new and unknown things.
Totally. All
Awesome.
right.
See you next
So
time.